It's my great pleasure to introduce our first speaker. LaVonne will give her introduction. Her speech will be 5 to 7 minutes. LaVonne, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Welcome, visitors and fellow Toastmasters. I am in the Understanding Conflict Resolution Level 3, Project 1. I'm going to read this, sorry. Conflict resolution has been a real problem for me. I will talk about how I was 20 years ago to present. Being in business, running a cafe, being a dispatcher, and recently being a property manager for about 40 landlords. So I retired a couple months ago, so I don't have 40 landlords anymore, but it was a challenge for me. A little bit of my background. Growing up, we moved a lot. I was always the new kid on the block, didn't know what subject we were studying, or it wasn't the same content as the previous school. So I was kind of labeled being stupid. I hated school and I didn't study. That's my fault. So I didn't handle conflict very well as a young child and as an adult. I would avoid it, hoping it would go away. Of course, that never worked. I would be silent and let someone else decide. I had a very meek personality. Intimidated by others, not sure of myself in decisions, and self-doubt. That followed me throughout young adulthood. We fast forward to 20 years ago. We moved to Pendleton. We bought a cafe and a truck stop. Husband and I, neither one ran a cafe or owned a cafe or a truck stop, so it was new for all of us. I think it took me 2 weeks to come out of the kitchen to be with our customers. But once I did that, it was actually a lot of fun. There was one particular day when I mixed up lunches with two of the regulars that came in, and they didn't say anything to me until after the fact, so I must have had some kind of influence on them at that time, although I was never mean. It was just, that was just a little side note there. So developing to be a stronger person in conflict. Listening to the videos for this speech has helped me to stay calm, to have a plan for conflict. And I'm sure I can learn more as I grow. I think learning I learned a lot having the cafe and the truck stop because I had to, and there were times when I actually had to tell customers to leave because they were being too rowdy. And to my surprise, they did it without a big scene. There was another particular time when a friend of our cook was standing in front of the window that we passed tickets and food through, and he was being obnoxious. So I went in front of him and said, "You need to leave now and talk to your friend another time." And he looked at me a little astonished and turned around and left. That was a surprise to me because I've never been that bold before. From the cafe, we did dispatch. We closed the cafe up after about 3 years. The cafe and the truck stop is Floyd's Truck Rent over on exit 202 here in Pendleton. I think we were both crazy to try to do that. However, we did it. So my husband decided for work, he would drive semis, and he signed me up to be a dispatcher, even though I told him I didn't want to be. That was about 3 or 4 years, so there was a lot of misunderstanding or a little bit of conflict with drivers that we were finding loads for. And so there was some settlements there that I had to deal with, and some of them turned out happy and some of them turned out not so happy. And when we ran that for about 5 years. And in 2009, I got my license to be a property manager. And so that's where the 40 different, started out with one and ended up with 40 different homeowners that wanted us to manage their properties. Most of them were out of town. So there was a little bit of conflict from time to time with the owners that needed to be settled, and tenants is another can of worms because they're all different, and sometimes they don't feel like I was being fair with my decisions on them. But my job was to protect the homes of the owners that I was managing them for. So I have had experience with property management business, restaurant business, and dispatch business after moving out here to Pendleton. I've had to deal with tenants, owners, truckers, and I think I've grown a lot in that, although at the beginning of this research, I was thinking, I don't handle conflict very well at all. But I think the experience over the last 20 years has changed that a lot. So researching the problem, if there's time for that, is a plus. And don't settle for the last or the least passive resistance. So maybe I deal with conflict better than I think I can. Thank you. Back to you, Toastmaster.